In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a fun little project here in creating a rhinestone decal design. Now, this is a project that really anyone with any kind of skill level with CorelDRAW or EasyStone should be able to create fairly simply. Now, I did provide the original artwork that you see here in a link in the video description, so you can download this artwork and give this project a try yourself. Now, if you don't have CorelDRAW already, you can download a 30-day demonstration at Corel.com. And if you don't have a copy of EasyStone, you can download a demo version of it at EasyStoneTemplates.com as well. So to get our bitmap into CorelDRAW, all we had to do was open CorelDRAW, create a new document, and drag and drop the bitmap from the desktop into CorelDRAW. That's simple. So now that we have the bitmap here in CorelDRAW, we just need to right click on it and lock it into place. That way I can't accidentally click on it and move it. So let's go ahead and begin the design process, and you'll see how this will come together very, very quickly for you. So we're going to grab the rectangle tool here in CorelDRAW, and we're going to draw out a rectangle, just like so. Now, what I'm doing is I have this rectangle roughly the same width, and the bottom of the rectangle is at the bottom of my design. Let's go ahead and give it a fill color, so you can see that. And then what we're going to do is create a rectangle across the top. Same thing, the width, or excuse me, the height of our letter E, and then come over here to right about there. See there? Let's give it a different color. All right, pretty simple stuff. Now we're going to go ahead and select this rectangle here. Under the View menu, choose Snap to. Make sure Snap to Guide or Snap to Objects is turned on. That usually is by default, but if it's not, make sure you turn it on. And then that will enable us to grab this control handle and snap it to the top of our second rectangle that we created, like so. And then this rectangle here, we're just going to stretch it over to that point there. We're going to select both of these. So I have my top rectangle selected, hold my Shift key, select the other rectangle, and then click on this button right here, Weld. That will weld the two together. Now let's go ahead and get rid of the fill. So we're just going to click on this, No Fill, and let's make our outline a little bit thicker. Ooh, maybe that was a little aggressive there. Let's go 1 millimeter. No, let's not do that either. Let's go a half a millimeter. And we'll do a quarter of a millimeter. So it's a little bit thicker so we can see this, what we're going to do here. Now, if we double click anywhere inside the rectangle, or these welded rectangles, that will allow us to take us into the Shape Edit tool. You can see that right here. That's the Shape Edit tool. If I double click on this node, see how it creates that angle? That's what we need. So we need the same thing over here, but the problem is we need to add a node. So just double click on the line right here where we want to add a node. That adds the node, and then click on this node, hold your Shift key, drag it straight down. That creates that angle. So far pretty easy, right? Alright, so now what we need to do is duplicate this. So hit the plus key on our numeric keypad on the keyboard, and then mirror it. Okay, so now we have the same thing at the top as we do at the bottom. Perfect, so we'll select both of those and weld those together. And that, my friend, is the basis of our letter E. Okay, now the eagle. That's the tricky part of this design. The eagle here, very poor quality image to begin with, right? So it's going to be very difficult for us to create this eagle exactly the way we want it. But this is a very popular eagle because, of course, it's very similar to the Philadelphia Eagles logo for the NFL team. So what we'll do is hop out here to the internet and let's look for a better source image. So here is Philadelphia Eagles. Click on images and see what we have. We have lots of more source images, right? So we just kind of browse here. That's a small one. And when you hover over the images, it tells us how big the image is. This is 300 pixels. That's a tiny image. What's this one here? This one's 900. Let's look at that one. So see, very crisp, clean, nice artwork, nice and big. We should be able to use this nicely. So let's go ahead and right click on the image and choose copy. And then back into CorelDRAW. We'll just zoom out here a little bit. Right click and choose paste. So there is our big eagle. We're going to move it down here. We do need to flip it because it's heading in the wrong direction. And we do need to rotate it a little bit because in the original source image it was more or less horizontal like that. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and right click and lock that bitmap down as well. And here's where we get to get a little creative. Now because we're drawing on top of a dark image, let's go ahead and make our outline orange. So we're going to right click on this little colored square. We get this dialog box, just warns us that we're changing the outline property. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And then we're also going to change the width of our outline. Let's go 2 millimeters. And again, we get the same warning message. We're changing the default properties. That's fine. Now, for this eagle and a lot of our design work, 3-point curve tool is your friend. And I have a custom toolbar here in CorelDRAW with some of the more common tools that I use. Now, you probably won't have this custom toolbar, but you can find a 3-point curve tool over here. If you count from the top, I think it's the 5th icon down. These are all kinds of different drawing tools. Your pen tool, your 2-point line tool, freehand tool, 3-point curve tool, those are the most common. The B-spline and polyline tools and Bezier, you probably won't use those very much. But 3-point curve tool, this one I can create just about anything I'd ever want to create with just this one tool. So really cool tool. And I think it wasn't until CorelDRAW X4 or X5 that this tool even existed. So it's a fairly new tool. But at any rate, 3-point curve tool. Let's take a look here. What we have to do is we have to kind of pretend we're one of those guys at the state fair who do caricatures. Because what they do is they sit you down and they look at you and they pick out certain design elements and they draw you. And that's kind of what we're going to do here. So we're not going to recreate this graphic exactly. We're just going to use it as a guide. So I'm going to start out here with our eye here, this little brow above the eye. And so with this 3-point curve tool, the way it works is we just click, drag, let go, and then the 3rd point. So the start, the end, and how much curve. So same thing here. We go start, end, and how much curve. So now you can see we have that little swooping action, right? Which is what we want. So then we can continue to come in here. Now I do want to point something out to you as we draw. Let me show you this. When we hover over, see that little down arrow? And what that does is if we draw another line segment, it's going to connect to this existing line segment. So when we go to add stones to that line, it's going to assume that that is all one line. Now we don't actually want that to happen at these corners. We want a stone right there at that corner. So what you do in that particular scenario is we switch over to our pick tool, deselect that line, then go back to your 3-point curve tool. Now when you hover over that, you don't see that little down arrow, so the next line segment we create will be a separate line segment. You'll learn more about that as you create different designs, but again, we're just using this as a guide, and I don't actually like that design the line that I just created, so we're just going to use this as a guide. So there is no exact right or wrong. You're just going to kind of just decide what you're going to do here. So we're going to go ahead and draw in some lines here, and I'm just going to kind of go willy-nilly. So I'm just going to use some of this as a guide because we just need something similar. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but obviously the customer is going to want it fairly similar to the original artwork that they sent us. So we got to kind of keep that in mind. So you see what we're doing? We're just picking out different elements of the design, of the original design, and we're kind of going with that as a starting point. We'll come back over here and we'll connect these as well. So just add those little end cap pieces like that. And that I actually did the wrong location, so we'll hit the escape key because we need it to be inside here like this. There we go. Now that one we'll do end to end like that. And then this one we can. Now again, this next line segment that we want to create, we want a separate line segment. So we'll switch to the pick tool, click off of that, then back to the 3-point curve tool. So that next line segment we make will be a separate one. There we go. So now we'll come back over here to our beak, and we'll go ahead and the smaller line segments that we make initially with that 3-point curve tool, until we really get a handle on how it works, the smaller line segments you make, the easier it'll be to control that line and the curvature of that line to get it exactly the way you want it. Again, right here at this point, we want a separate line, so we'll click off of that so that when we add our next line segment, it will be separate from the previous one. So we just kind of go around here, add these little line segments the way we want them. Click off of it, go back to it, so that this next line segment will line up nicely. We want one more here. There we go. Alright, so that is the basic part of the eagle the way we want it. So let's draw those lines out so we can look at them all by their lonesome. So there is the eagle, and here is our letter E. So let's bring that over. And obviously we have to scale our letter E to make it more proportional here with our eagle. So we just make it whatever we want it to be. Position it however we want it to be. And I think I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. There we go. There's no, it's just whatever we want. Alright, I think that is going to get the job done. I think I like that right there. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to resize the whole design to the finished size. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the whole thing. I will usually make a duplicate of it, just in case we want to make different sizes of this design. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the whole design and scale it. Let's make it 4.5 inches. I think that will work out fine for us. There it is. Now let's take all these larger thick lines of the eagle and let's make them a little bit thinner. And let's add some stones to those. So we're going to select all the lines of our eagle. Let's go with our crystal because that's the color we're using for the eagle. And go to the stone tab. And I have my stones size set to 3.4 for SS10 and then 0.5 of a millimeter, and click add stones. And that is just going to add stones to all those paths. And then we're going to select that whole design and delete these stone paths. And then we're going to select the whole design and look for any overlapping stones. So on the editing tab, we'll choose check spacing. It found 16 overlapping stones, so let's go ahead and dispose of those. And then we'll begin fine-tuning the design. So let's right-click on our E and choose Lock Object so we can't move the E. And we'll deal with the stones here in the eagle design. So you can see right here we have some overlapping stones, so let's deal with those. Let's move that one out of the way. And then this one here, let's go ahead and tell you what we're going to do. We're going to select all of these and we're going to reposition. Something like that. And then what we can do is we can fine-tune any changes that we want to make. So for example, I'm going to bring in this stone a little bit. I'm going to bring in this stone a little bit. And we'll bring in this stone a little bit. And then if I want to pop this stone out a little bit, we can make these small little tweaks. And you can see now it looks a lot better than it did. So you can just make these small little adjustments and it'll come together for you pretty quickly. So here, same thing here, we're just going to pull this stone down a little bit to make that small adjustment. And I'll be happy with those. Happy with this. We're going to pull this stone down. That takes care of that. And I might pull that one down a little bit. That takes care of that. I'm going to pull this one in a little. And we have some overlapping stones here that we have to adjust for. Maybe we need this stone, maybe we don't. We can always delete it later if we decide we don't want it as part of our design. Take a look at the beak part of the design here, and we're going to add a stone. Something like that, and I might push this one up, push that up. And we're going to just push these stones out a little bit. And I'm going to just push the stone out a little bit there. That takes care of the beak part of the design. I think that looks pretty good. Let's see what we're going to do here now. We'll go ahead and push this stone out. We have some overlapping stones here, so we'll have to come in here and push these stones out a little bit. That looks pretty good. Now let's add a couple of stones for the eye. So there's one, there's another one, and then we'll add one more. And that should give us the eye. Well, that looks pretty good. And then we're going to make a small change here. We're going to push these stones up, maybe a little bit more, because I want to add a stone like so. Now that was a pretty dramatic adjustment that I just made. So we do need to kind of just bring these stones back down a little bit and kind of reconfigure how these stones are going to come into play here. Sometimes the adjustment's not that big a deal. I don't get too excited about overlapping stones. We can always make those small changes, take care of those little situations. So I'm just zooming in and out with my wheel mouse to make those small changes and get it the way I want it. And I think that looks pretty good. I'll be happy with that for our eagle. Now, the letter E here. Let's go ahead and unlock it. I am going to make a small adjustment here. I'm going to double click on it. That will take me into my node edit tool. I'm going to select all the nodes at the top and just make it a little bit taller. I know it's going against the grain a little bit, but I think it will make for a better looking design. So we'll make that small change. Alright, so now that we have that done, let's change our stone color. Light cyan. Now what we're going to do is come into the Stone Fill tab and choose this grid fill option here. And it will go ahead and fill in our letter E somewhat. Actually, I tell you what, I'm going to back out just a minute here. I am going to take all the stones of our eagle, group them together, and lock them. So all I did is select all the stones, Control G to group, and then right click to lock it. Then we'll add the fill. Alright, perfect. So now I'm going to make a few changes here to the fill of our letter E, and this will enable us to make a better looking design. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to take this top row of stones and let's go ahead and nudge those up one more row. And so now you see we have 4, but I actually want 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to offset that one more time. So that will give us 5. Now let's look at these stones at this angle here. We have 4 stones at this angle, which is exactly what we want for this design. And so we want to create something similar over here, but right now we have 1, 2, 3 stones. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this right here and we're going to offset 1 stone, and then we're going to delete these. Now what happens here is over here we have 5 stones at an angle. So what I'm going to do is add that 5th stone here. So we're going to add, if I offset each one of these down 1, then that will give us the same 5 stones at an angle. You'll see all this works. So there's 3, there's 4, so you can see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stones at an angle, just like it is over here. So that's just a little change that we want to make there. And then we kind of want to do the same thing to the bottom, but I'm actually going to select this whole row. Let's right click on our E and lock that down to that little pink outline of our E. And I'm going to select this whole row of stones here. So I select the first stone, the last stone, come into my selections, right click on create selection, and then stone fill and offset 1 set. See, so we're just making that a little bit wider there. Now, just like we did up here, we have 5 stones at an angle. We want to do the same thing down here. We want to make sure we have 5 stones at an angle, but we need to come over 1, because right now there's 4 and we need 5. So what that means is we're going to come down, take that and have 1 more row of stones. Now we can kind of come at this angle. So there's, go ahead and delete that. So if we look at the angle, there's 5 stones at that angle, just like there is up at the top. And that's basically what we want to make sure we have. Now here there's only 4 stones at this angle, so we're going to offset, 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 and 1 more. And that will give us 5 at that angle, which is what we want, right? So that takes care of the basis of our letter E here. Now what we need to do though is we need to change how this is all set up. As far as the outline, we want it to be all crystal. So what we can do here is we can actually come in here. Let's unlock our graphic here, and we can make a small change here. We can just take our letter E here, and all these points, we can just move all these points of, and there's a lot of ways to do this, but this is probably, I just want to show you this trick, if you will, where we're just going to move the outline of our letter E, reposition it. So we're just going to move it down. Go ahead and delete that extra node. And all we're doing is right at every corner, we're just moving that node to every corner. I just want to show you a fun little trick here. And honestly, it is probably the quickest way because we already have the artwork pretty well done. It is the quickest way to add those or select those perimeter stones. So we're just adjusting those nodes. I think that was the last one. All right. So what we have here is we have our pink outline that runs right through the center of all those perimeter stones. So over here in the selections tab, we can mark that object. Okay. And then we can select the whole thing. And then we can say, select only those stones that are on that outline. And hit select by outline. And it'll go through and make a selection of those stones that are only on that outline. So if I give them a different color, see how it actually selected just those stones. Now it also selected the fill of our letter E. That's why it kind of looks weird, but that's okay. So what we can do is shift select our letter E there, and then if we give those stones a different color, then you can see that it selected just those stones around the perimeter. So we can change those to crystal, rename and fill. And then it changes all those stones around the perimeter to crystal, and we can get rid of that little pink E because we don't need that anymore. Pretty cool stuff. Alright, so now what we need to do is we need to unlock the eagle, move it to the top, shift page up. So now all the stones for the eagle are sitting on top of our letter E. Now, because we have stones on top of stones here, we need to make some small edits here. So let's just come in here and delete any stone that is intersecting the eagle. Just like so. And then do the same thing to the top. So any stone that we think is going to be in the way of the eagle, we just go ahead and dispose of. Actually, those aren't in the way, but these are. So we'll get rid of those. And then all the stones that are in between, we can just kind of come in here and group select all of those. And that takes care of all of our overlaps. Now what we're going to do is make a small adjustment to these other stones here. So hold the shift key down. That will constrain so they are just moving them perfectly straight up and down by holding that shift key. And we're just moving these stones so they're nice and close to our eagle outline, but not intersecting it. And then what we'll do is we'll select these stones. I'm selecting one, holding my shift key down, selecting the others, shift A. And that will kind of give an even spacing to these stones here. And we do that all the way up, shift A, and that will space those stones out. Sometimes we can fit an extra stone in there, sometimes not, shift A. In this case, I don't think we have room for an extra stone, so we'll just leave it like this. And we do that for all the rows where we needed to make an adjustment. Pretty simple to do. We can also, if you're real careful, you can marquee select, shift A. The other thing that we can do, I don't know if you know this or not, but the other thing that we can do, let me just show you this. If we alt drag, so if I alt drag, I don't have to totally wrap the selection around the stone. If the stone crosses that selection marquee, it'll select that, and then I can hit shift A. And sometimes that works better too. If we just alt drag, select those stones, shift A. And then we need to do the same thing to the bottom of the design, right? So we'll go ahead and move these stones up using the shift so they constrain perfectly up, straight up and down. There's no side to side movement at all. There we go, all the way over. All right, so I think that looks pretty good. Same thing I would recommend, alt drag. Now here there's an extra stone, so we can shift select that out of the selection. So just use those little selection techniques. We will alt drag, and then we need to get rid of these extra ones here. Shift A. So whatever type of selection technique is going to work best for the stones that you're trying to select. I'm using that alt drag technique. Getting really close to the stone here, and then just making sure we select those. The more that you use CorelDRAW, the better you're going to get at making those little selections. Let's try to fit an extra stone in here. So we'll alt drag. See, it's tight fit, but we got it to work. There we go. All right. So now we can sit back and kind of look at this design a little bit. Let's go ahead and add a weed box. So we'll choose that. So there's our weed box, and that looks good for the design. So then the next thing we should do is one more time double check for overlapping stones. So go to the editing tab, check spacing. There are no overlapping stones. So the next thing to do is add that Decal Cut Line. So we'll come in here and go to the Specialty tab. There's that Create Decal Cut Line. So we'll click on that option. Okay, so there's a group. So let's look and see what, oh, okay, our eagle here. I forgot about our eagle being grouped. So we'll ungroup the eagle. Then we will do that Create Decal Cut Line. Now what will happen here is inside, see all these little inside cavities? So what we'll do is we'll select our Decal Cut Line and hold the Shift key, click on, and that will get rid of those cavities. So now we just have the outside perimeter for the Decal Cut Line. And this is what we would cut our decal material to this shape before we actually added our transfer to it. So let's just go ahead and come to the Miscellaneous tab. Use our stone use report. Tells us how many stones we used of SS10 crystals. There's 241. Light cyan, there's 196. And the overall size of the design, I'll just choose Add Dimensions. That will allow us to add the dimensions to the design. And there is our finished design. So you can see it was a bit of a process, but not too complicated, and it looks great, and that's the most important thing, is that the design looks great and the customer's happy with it. So I hope you enjoyed watching this step-by-step video and learned a little something, and in your next design it'll be that much easier for you to create it. Thanks for watching.